Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome Bryan Hall to the 100% Humboldt podcast.
Good to see you, Scott.
How's it going?
I'm good.
Good to see you. And it is chilly out today, boy. Whew, you can feel some of that on the way in.
It's supposed to be an emergency weather shelter tonight.
Oh, is that right? It's going to be that cold.
It's going to be 38 or something like that, yeah.
And as the Eureka Rescue Mission director, you'd have a pulse of that. So tell us what your job is. What are your duties, your calling? How did you, we'll talk about how you got there, but what do you currently do?
I'm the executive director.
Okay. And what does that mean?
That means I oversee everything and I'm responsible for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So define everything. How many beds? How big is the mission here?
Well, we have about over 100 beds, I think, at the men's shelter, and the women's shelter right now, I'm not sure, probably 60 something.
Okay. Are they housed together down in Old Town? Or
yes.
Are they separate?
Yeah. On 3rd Street is the women's shelter. 2nd Street is the men's.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. They're on kind of the opposite sides of the block. 2
different buildings.
Gotcha. And how did you get? So tell us your story, your God story, your testimony. You have a pretty colorful background.
Yeah, I do.
I'll let you tell that. Please share.
How far back do you want me to go?
I don't know, until you were a kid in Reading or wherever you're from.
I'm a Humboldt County boy. Been here my whole life.
You might say 100% Humboldt.
100% Humboldt.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I was adopted when I was a baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my mom and dad took me to Orleans. And so I spent 3 or 4 years, I think, in Orleans. And then we moved to Metropolitan, where Chapman's gym and mineral shop is.
Sure.
Just right down the road from that is a dairy.
Okay.
And I lived right behind the big house, what we called it, and in a trailer house there. And
right off the 101 down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Albert Cardoza was my uncle.
How about that?
Yeah. He used to be a bartender in Ferndale. And so he's been passed away for a couple, 3 years. But yeah, so I was raised on the farm, had a good life, good mom, good dad.
Nice.
I grew up with a bunch of cousins. They're like brothers and sisters. And, it was just your normal childhood, running around in the fields barefoot.
Farm kid.
Stepping in cow patties, and the warm ones were the best on a cold day. Yeah. So
gross, but probably on a cold day.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
So, and experienced all the farmhood things when I was a kid. So,
sure.
Like I say, I grew up really well. We moved from there up to Hydesville and went to Hydesville School. I think it was my 7th grade, 8th grade is when I tried my first taste of marijuana. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I got real paranoid. But there were a couple of friends of mine that I wanted to hang out with, and that's what they did. So
they were smoking weed.
Yeah, before you know it. Mom and Dad got a divorce. My dad was an alcoholic.
Whose wasn't, right?
I know. Back then it was...
My goodness.
It was a big, a big thing was beer and football. Yep.
Cigarettes. Yep.
Yeah.
All the folks in Iowa where I'm from, they would get drunk and fight at the pub. They just... Fighting was the other pastime, I guess. My dad told all these stories. It's like, you guys, wow, people don't do that here.
Right.
That much.
Right. Yeah. I don't hang out with those that do. I like to keep my face in form.
Absolutely. I like my face like it is.
Yeah. So, ended up going to 410 High School and still smoking pot. And then I tried methamphetamine for the first time.
Wow. High school.
Yeah. And, I could just tell you it went all bad after that.
Wow.
I took a good moral kid that had, I didn't know Jesus when I was a kid, but I had an experience with Jesus when I was a kid, and I didn't have a Bible. I didn't have anybody take me to church.
Good.
But Billy Graham on TV. And I can remember when I was just 7 years old, 8 years old, sitting on the couch. My mom would call me in from being outside playing, and she would call me and tell me Billy Graham was on TV tonight. And so I'd come in and take my bath and sit down on the couch and watch him. And I can remember crying more than one occasion watching him.
He was great.
Crying when he got done and everybody went forward, he would do the altar call.
Sure.
I wished I was there.
Yeah.
And so I would get on my knees.
Right.
In the living room, and I said a prayer, and I received Jesus.
Nice.
But again, I didn't have anybody taking me to church. Nobody had a Bible. Nobody taught me the ways of the Lord. So I look back on my life now through all the things I've been through. I mean, some really bad things. And I can see his hand on my life protecting me for today. There's no doubt in my mind that he had a hold of me and that he came into my heart all those years ago.
Right.
But so I go to high school on drugs, getting in trouble, got out of Fortuna High School, didn't graduate, went to East High School.
Is that like a continuation?
It was a continuation high school, East
in
High
Fortuna?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind
Play
of
football or sports?
No, I wished I did. You know, I look back now, I wish I see them graduate and the kids get up and they get their diplomas and, you know, my heart just sinks that I didn't.
You're like me, you're on the party team, starting quarterback for the bong team. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, you know, I regret a lot of things. I wish that I would have finished the high school and maybe been a jock. I probably would have made a good football player, quarterback.
Funny, you know, it's a funny story how many people turn out. They turn out okay. Those are terrible years that were terribly fun, and it's arguably, but terrible in terms of maybe their long-term possibilities, but how God yanked some of us out of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think some people with or without God grow out of it too. There's that element. So shout out to you guys that do that. So what happened after school? Just got downhill?
Yeah. You know, I'd been to jail a few times, all drug related. And I can take you fast forward 34 years ago. I was in Eureka drinking at the Schooner Saloon, and I met this beautiful girl named Karen.
That's right down by the Mission, right?
On 3rd Street, yeah. And she was just, man, you knock out. And so I was hoping I would go home with her that night, but it didn't work out. And so I went home to living in Hydesville at the time, and I had given her my number, and I thought, she'll never call. Man, that very next day she called me.
She called you?
She called me, yeah.
How about that?
3 months later, we were married.
Wait, they never call. She called. That's great.
Yeah.
3 months.
3 months later, we were married. Yeah. And we, I was working at the sawmill at the time, pulling green chain at Eel River Sawmills, Mill A.
That was out in Hydesville, Carlotta.
That's right. As you're going to Rio Dell, right before you go over the bridge to go to Rio Dell, you used to be on the side of the big mill and work there. Worked my butt off. Yeah. And drinking after work. And so the party life, but got fairly responsible. Yeah. But then June 19th, 2002, we had built a home in Fortuna on Murray Court, right off of Thelma Avenue. And Brand's making a new home. Wow. And I had gone to work for another company after that. And I was off on disability. And I learned how to make methamphetamines. Wow. And so on June 19th, 2002.
Like Breaking Bad kind of guy.
Yeah. It was, all the stuff that was on the streets was not potent. So I figured I'd make my own. Yeah.
It's kind of like growing your own, I guess, if you're a weed
it's
guy.
A little different, but
ramifications are quite different.
Yeah. So needless to say that I did get caught. I was raided by the Humboldt County Drug Task Force.
Oh, wow.
And Drug Enforcement Agency from Redding came over, and we lost our home, lost my kids, lost my wife, lost everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
In one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Huh.
In September of 2002, I was sitting in San Quentin Prison, West Block, 5th tier, cell 2, waiting to go down to California Rehabilitation Center, which is a big, long name for a level 2 prison.
Where's that at?
That's down in, down by LA. It's, I forgot the name of the place.
There's a couple down by Bakersfield that way, but anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to go bye-bye.
Yeah, I went bye-bye for a while. My wife went through streams of living water. We never got divorced. I spent 14 months. I got out and did good for a while. Started lifting weights, and I was listening to ungodly counsel. And so I was going to file for divorce, and thinking that she was going to be the one that was, causing me to live a life like that. And really, it was my own sinful nature, and I wasn't being the man that I should have been and the father that I should have been. Right. Yeah. So I broke a lot of things, a lot of hearts.
Well, what streams of living water? Let's go back. What
was she? Sue Tilley at the time was running that. And It was I don't know how many long, a year, I think, program. It was a live-in program. So
where she went to that.
She went to that.
Was that up here in Eureka, Humboldt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's where the women's center is, I think. It's downtown Eureka.
Okay.
Yeah. And so while I was in prison, she was there.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
With the kids?
No.
Okay.
No, the kids actually went with my sister-in-law who worked for the Department of Health and Human Services. And so she got the kids, thank God. And they went into her custody for 14 months.
Wow.
More than that. And so we fought and finally got our kids back.
Wow.
But
Good
then, the story didn't end well there because I got out of prison and I had tattoos all over me and I was lifting weights and I was a big guy and I thought I was all that, and I got hooked back into meth, not cooking meth, but using meth.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I got arrested again.
Wow.
Yeah.
On probation, probably.
Yeah. I think I just, the day that I finished my parole, I think it was the day after that I actually got arrested again. And then I got OR'd. So I was on felony probation and then I did another crime. And yeah, I was looking at 6 years prison.
So they just send you back up at that point.
Yeah. That was,
I take it that didn't happen?
that didn't happen. Huh. Yeah. I lied. I mean, I could tell you what happened, the crime.
Yeah.
It's pretty comical.
Okay. If it's a good story, absolutely.
It's a terrible story.
Cheers.
It's gonna, everybody out there looking at me right now is gonna go, dude, you were so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'd say that for most of us. At least you're being honest about it.
Yeah. It was early morning.
Uh-huh.
I had gone down and stolen, a guy that I was with broke into an Ace Hardware van. We popped the lock off the side of it and went in and got a bunch of stuff out, put it in my truck and took it back to the apartment. And I had forgotten a knife sharpener that was inside. Huh. And so I thought, where's the white knife sharpener? And he goes, oh, we must have left it there.
In the van?
In the semi-truck trailer, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I know.
Better go back and get it.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. A friend of mine wanted some heroin, so he gave me some money, and I jumped in my truck, and I was going to go get his heroin, and it was still dark, and I thought, I'll go get that knife sharpener. Yeah. And so I went down, parked the truck down the street, went back in, got greedy, tried to shut the door to go inside and get more stuff. Well, while I was in there, the trucker that was staying at the motel room came back to get early morning to go do his route.
Right.
And he heard me in the back. Yeah, and locked me in the back of that.
Perfect.
Pitch. Yeah. So
we're going for a drive.
Oh, it was terrible.
Boy.
So my story was that, it was somebody else in the truck because I made my way through the top of the truck with a couple of gardening tools while he was calling the police.
Wow.
And I was on top of a pallet and peeled the aluminum top of that truck back and
got out of there somehow.
I went out through the top. Yeah.
Huh. Did you get your knife sharpener?
No. It's still in the truck.
Still in the truck.
Locked.
Proverbial truck.
Yeah. So long story short, I got arrested and I was looking at 6 years. I made up a story that I heard somebody in the van. I got up on top and was trying to help him out the hole. And it was just stupid. I lied to my attorney. I lied to everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was early morning. About 3:30, I was in dorm 385 H quad. And Ryan Craig was the correctional officer.
This is here?
At Humboldt County Jail.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Was it the pig house then? Was it down the same one we know today? Okay.
The new jail, yeah. Mm-hmm. And God impressed upon my heart, said, I want you to tell the truth. And I had to tell somebody in authority the truth. I knew I wasn't going to get out, but God spoke to my heart and said, the truth is going to set you free.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I got on my little jailhouse slippers and walked up, and Ryan was standing there at the podium, and I told him I did it. And he looked at me and he said, you did what? I said, I did the crime. I've been lying all along. I'm guilty and I deserve to be here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And he kind of looked at me and he said, oh, okay.
Cool.
And I turned around and walked back to my bed, and I felt like 1,000,000 pounds was taken off of me.
Amazing.
And God gave me a peace that was beyond anything I could ever describe.
Huh.
I knew I was going to prison, but he was going to take care of me. And so
that's great.
Yeah, it was strange.
Who was writing it? He was correctional officer?
Ryan Craig. Yeah.
He's the overnight guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's a good friend of mine today.
How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably know a lot of these guys that you had run-ins with, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great. It's funny. It's wonderful. Actually, it's great.
About a week later, after I did that, or 2 weeks later, he had come back from vacation, and I was laying on my bed, and he came up to my little bed and leaned over the concrete wall and said, I had some lunch with some higher ups this weekend. And I said, okay. And he goes, yeah, we talked about you. I said, you talked about me? And he goes, yeah, don't blow it this time.
Wow.
And I tried to get more information out of him. Even to this day, he won't tell me who he talked to. And
higher ups.
Some higher ups, yeah. I don't know who they were, but
they're in the top. They're way up there.
He talked to the right person.
Huh.
Yeah. Because I was completely transparent, being honest, and I had repented to ask God to forgive me.
Wow.
And he wouldn't tell me. And 3 weeks later, I went to court, and the district attorney came off of 6 years mandatory prison, and they gave me probation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I needed a Christian program, wanted a Christian program, but I didn't know where to go. And my probation officer, we were just brainstorming places, and I said something like, I heard the Rescue Mission had a program, and she said, that's it. She got on the phone, was talking with Steve Lorenz just seconds later, and the next day I had an interview, and 2 days later I was in the program at the Rescue Mission.
Wow. Okay.
It's been about over 17 years.
So there were those in the jail ministry while you were there too, right? Steve Darnell, Russ Connett, was any of those names?
I remember the names. Stuart Sundet.
Sundet, yep.
Stuart he would come in there, but I had known Stuart from before when I got saved, radically saved years ago. Huh. And
small county.
Oh, I didn't want to see him when he came in jail because I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah.
I love it, man. You're super raw and honest. This is. I was a liar. I was lying through my teeth.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. And then, which makes the confession and the turning away from that, turning toward God, just that much more real.
Yeah,
and free. I slept good that night.
Yeah,
yeah. I felt great.
Yeah, when He pushes on your heart, and you're in the wrong, you need to respond. Yeah.
Good word. Yeah. Truth shall set you free.
It will, yeah. I had no idea when He told me that God spoke to my spirit. Wow. I had no idea that He really meant that He was going to set me free.
You're literally free.
Literally.
So you got to go to the mission then. How did that go?
Oh, it was great. Yeah. My first 2 weeks I stayed there in the dorm with the homeless people.
Wow.
Because there was no room in program member rooms.
All those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. I thought there was a program house uptown,
right?
That the mission sponsored and had.
The big screen TV.
Yeah, but I didn't know I was going to be in the shelter with the homeless people.
On a cot? Or
in a bunk bed, yeah, with somebody above. And yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It didn't smell good.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I didn't want to take my shoes off. And
probably still doesn't.
Now it actually smells good now.
Is it better? Okay.
Well,
you would know.
As much as we can.
Yeah. Do what you can.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the program then?
It's about a year. Okay. I did 10 months at the time. It was a 10-month program.
Do you guys do outside work and stuff, like daytime stuff?
Yeah, we go out in the community and clean up stuff. Yeah.
So how would that differ from Redwood Teen Challenge in terms of what you guys do day to day? I imagine it's a pretty structured program. Yeah,
ours isn't nearly as structured as Teen Challenge is. Teen Challenge has more of a curriculum, and ours, that would never work where we're at with the homeless folks. Yeah, there's no way.
Two different demographics, two
different styles, but the same Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're meeting people where they're at. Saw a thing on the Sisters of St. Joseph this week. I'm on a board, and it's a really good video if you ever get to see it. The sisters came here. There was no hospital in Eureka. Nothing. And there's 8 or 10 of them.
Yeah.
And they just hit the streets, and they wanted to find needs. And, hey, let's start a hospital. And they did. And this is ground zero for the Sisters of Orange, who later went to Vancouver and Orange County, and quite a met people where they're at.
Yep.
So you did a year. What did you then go to the workforce? Go back to work, or?
Yeah, I was going to go to Bible college, and the director at the time, Dan Ice, told me that people aren't praying if they're going to help me financially; they're praying how much they're going to give me to go to Bible college.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I was thinking, how can I get all my kids together and my wife, and they're living up in the projects, and I'm living at the mission. How am I going to put this all together? Because it was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, the kids were running amok, and 2 of my kids were doing drugs, and 3 of them were. And then,
Right.
it was really tough.
Yeah.
But then Dan asked me one day, he said, maybe you think maybe God might want to use you here. And I was just like, man, that would be so cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, because I love the mission.
Yeah.
I loved everybody coming in. I couldn't wait till 5:30 at night when all the homeless people come in.
Huh.
I just got to know them.
Yeah.
I got to know their stories, their lives. And
Every story.
yeah, I'd start with a little handshake, maybe a fist bump. Fist bumps weren't too popular back then.
Yeah.
But just getting to know people, and my favorite was that people didn't want to be touched because I'm affectionate. I like giving people hugs.
You're a hugger, yeah.
And so my favorite ones were the ones that didn't want to give a hug, so I would work on them. And after a while, I was always getting hugs.
It's my challenge.
I think it was a both way thing, because I needed the hug as much as they did, and I still do to this day.
Amen.
So,
yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah. So I started at the thrift store.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked there for about 3 months. I learned why.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a preacher say, a man who knows how will always have a job, but the man who knows why will always be his boss. And so God was taking me down the why road. And I learned why and pricing on vases and pricing on knickknacks and things.
Sure.
And just tracing that item to the shelf, to the register, to the office, to the bank, to, to paying the bills and taking care of the mission. And the very purpose of it is to...
Was it at the old Larry's Market where it is now?
Still going strong
we're
today.
Big donors, man. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank
They
you.
do. No, they do a great job.
Yeah.
Eureka Rescue
Mission.
Thrift Store.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the address on Broadway? Shout out.
1031 Broadway, Eureka.
So it's right there by Don's Rental and Leon's.
Kind of across
Leon's
the street.
Muffler.
Yeah, Leon's is the gas station and then Leon's. Yeah.
Oh, you guys have nice stuff. It's
really nice stuff.
Pretty nice stuff. Yeah.
Gently used items. I mean, we'll take any kind of donation. There's days we don't take linens and various things. There's a board out in the alleyway where you drop stuff off. It tells you what we're taking that day or not. So.
Yeah. No cash. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you can bring cash.
I have a big bucket of cash.
Yeah.
So how much, without saying how much of that funds, is it a chunk of what funds the mission in Old Town?
Every bit of the proceeds from the thrift store go to the ministry. Yes.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. And so, paying the wages. So we offer employment.
And the folks that work there are usually mission program people.
Right. We have seven graduates that are working there right now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
And keep it running. Work hard too.
And also current mission folks that are maybe enrolled.
I have people that our manager's not part of the mission, and she hasn't been part of the mission. There's other employees that have never been a part of the mission. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dan Ice, man, shout out to Dan. Remember when he was a roofer?
Oh man. Yeah.
So he brought you up and raised you up in that ministry.
He took me under his wing when I was in the program.
Wow.
And I had no idea. So I was working under Dan at the thrift store, and then back at the shelter. I came back to the shelter as a house manager, and I did that for a couple of years, worked as the men's shelter director. So I was in charge of the men's shelter and partially the women's shelter as well. Yeah, and it was 11 years ago last September that Dan told me that I was going to be the next executive director.
Wow. And you said, yeah, okay.
I said,
Me?
I said, yeah, right.
What did Moses say to God? He goes, I can't even talk good. Pick Aaron.
Yeah. Well, that's how I felt. Yeah. It really did. He sat in his chair. I was in his office, meet with him every Wednesday and discuss the ministry and things going on. And he leaned back in his chair and tapped the arms of his chair and said, Bryan, someday you're going to be sitting in this chair. And I said, that's when I looked at him. I said, yeah, right. And he goes, one thing I learned is don't question Dan. Yeah. And I learned he's a man of good discipline.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he said, no, I'm serious.
Yeah. Confident.
I'm taking a full-time pastor position at Calvary Chapel, Eureka. I've already talked with the board and you're the next guy.
Oh, it's done.
I said, I'll give you 6 months.
Yeah. You're a made man.
Yeah.
It's already going to happen.
Had to pray, had to talk to the wife.
Sure.
And,
So let's back it way up to say, magnificent ministry. I'd like to talk about the history of the rescue missions on, all coasts, but this coast. And then the acute need that Humboldt has always had. Humboldt County's been, the home of homelessness big time for, since I've been living here, but especially really acute since Jerry Garcia died in 95. I mean, certainly in the 2000s, and then homelessness now is just normal. I mean, and specifically Eureka. My observations, I don't think they're all together correct, but even Fortuna has some homeless people now, and places that we never had homeless people has a few, and I always marvel that some towns just don't have the issue. But so history of homelessness in Humboldt. What are your thoughts?
When I was a kid, I never noticed. The rescue mission became the rescue mission in 1967. I was born in 1965. So there was a need. And I can remember in my dad's orange Plymouth Scamp with my mom, and it had I forgot the top, the roof. It was like vinyl, but it was, we would drive through Old Town Eureka, and I would always beg to drive through Old Town so I could look at the winos and the bums. Yeah. And I never could figure out why they were laying on the sidewalk. I couldn't understand that. Why? This
is before Old Town had a retrofit and a renaissance, and it hadn't been gentrified quite yet.
I was probably 7 years old, 8 years old, 6, 7.
So Old Town was still pretty gross back in the day, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't remember much except for looking out the window in the back of the car and seeing people laying on the sidewalk in the doorways. And my dad always said those are winos and bums. So, but I couldn't figure it out. I was thinking, like, why would they, why did they lay on a sidewalk? Why don't they lay in their bed? Yeah. And I never knew. And I understand now. Yeah. I know why. Yeah. Primarily substance abuse. Sure. Alcoholism. Yeah.
Mental illness too.
More so now. Maybe back then, I don't know. Yeah. But now it's really, really prevalent. There's a lot of mental illness. Yeah. It's really sad. It's really sad.
The chief was here a couple weeks ago, and he said, that's the training is different for that now. It's not all just total enforcement. It's counseling. It's coming in gentle and soft and trying to figure it out. Different world. But so this coast, this county, this town has been kind of a magnet for, I think, a westward migration, and it is kind of the end of the line in some ways, right?
Right on the coast.
Yeah, that's kind of part of it. I mean, I guess you could go to San Francisco or San Diego. The weather's better, but it seems like a lot of folks end up here. Yeah, and I imagine many with different stories, which we'll get to in a minute. I'll ask you about maybe some of the more memorable stories, because I imagine you have dozens. But so what do we know about the rescue mission system? I know George Vaughn, who used to work with us at the Tri-City newspaper, he worked at the PDX mission in Portland, which is apparently a pretty big one. Where are there other missions up and down the coast?
I haven't been. I know Santa Rosa has one.
Oh, do they?
But I haven't been out to visit.
But they exist, and
Redding has one.
Okay.
Larger areas, of course, they're a lot bigger.
Sacramento would have one of some sort downtown.
There was, it used to be called the Association of Gospel Rescue Missions, and now it's called City Gate. Okay. And so we are a part of that. It's a networking of missions all across the country.
Okay. Was that started by like a specific denomination?
I don't know. I don't know how that started.
Okay.
John is his name. He's no longer the CEO, but we had him up here for a fundraiser.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he spoke. And so and now it's somebody else. I don't know who it is.
So it's an association, but it's loosely knit in the sense of,
they're not telling us what to do.
Right. So you guys are autonomous. You do what's good for Eureka.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I imagine most of them don't have a thrift store.
There's a few that do. I know that ours is for the area is pretty good size.
Oh boy, yeah. The old Larry's Market. That's pretty big. A lot of square foot.
Big floor. Yep.
Any idea how big that is? Must be
I don't.
10,000. It's a pretty big store.
Yeah. I should know because we're getting a bid to put a new roof on it. So
you'll know soon.
Cool. Yeah.
That'll be real money.
Yeah, I know it.
Is A&I going to do it?
I called A&I to get an estimate. Yeah.
So Dan, by the way, was a heck of a pastor at Calvary or Eureka. Sorry.
Yeah.
Always good to see him, and he's just a solid guy.
Yeah.
And in fact, his son went to school with my son 100 years ago. But so tell us couple stories about folks that you met that, I think homelessness is a mystery to most of us. It's like it's the guy in the alley listening to Jimi Hendrix while he shoots up in my alley, literally in G Street downtown. Yeah. But I've gotten to know him. He's a really nice guy. He's always respectful. He's yes sir, no sir. He's really a nice man. So he's this human being I've gotten to know a little bit. Another story is a guy wrote me a little card. He goes, "You never treated me like dirt, because you always spoke to me like a human being."
Yeah.
And so I think we forget as we drive by.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that perception, and maybe a couple of stories of folks, and maybe a couple of graduates? I mean, you're graduating guys. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Facebook all the time. Mm-hmm. Hey, there's another one.
Yeah. There's such a mix of across the board. Every homeless person, a drug addicted person, alcoholic, or whatever you call it, whatever you want to call them, is somebody's child. They at one time were a soft, beautiful little baby.
Yeah.
With little fingers and little toes and beautiful little eyes, you know. And life just takes a toll on us. We've got a sin nature. We make bad decisions. We suffer the consequences. And some people get so stuck that they either can't get help or refuse help, you know. And, we see the bodies of broken spirits.
Well said.
I believe that the spirit can maintain or handle a broken body, but I don't think the body can maintain or handle a broken spirit. And so
you see some of those?
I see broken spirits every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day. But you never know. You can't judge them by the way they look.
Right.
You can, but you're missing out.
I think God could unbreak a spirit too, right?
Oh, he can.
Heal it.
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah.
A born again experience and a brand new person.
Yeah.
Just maybe no teeth.
Yeah, right. Not the body, the spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've seen people that you swear they'd never make it get born again and become so whole that you see the before and after pictures. You just
didn't have the brain damage, didn't have the...
maybe some.
Yeah.
But they don't realize it, you know?
Yeah.
So there was a guy named Don. This is several years ago. Don wore the same coat. Don's coat did not smell nice. It had food on it, but he refused to ever give up the coat. There was some kind of sentimental value to that coat. He never talked very much, but I got to know him. He had really long fingernails with dirt underneath his fingernails, a beard, and again, he didn't talk very much, but he would start to say, "Hey, Bryan," when he would come in at night. And so over the years, I just would talk to Don and a few words. I would share the gospel with him, and he didn't really respond a lot and even then I would be teaching at night for chapel on nights when somebody wouldn't show up from a church, and I would share, and I was kind of forceful with the word sometimes because I knew everybody and they knew where I was coming from, so I could do that.
How's Cedar doing with that, my friend?
Cedar's awesome.
Is he a good preacher?
He's teaching for our guys in the program. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Man, I just love him.
Great joy.
He's perfect.
No greater joy. Saw him today, and I thought he told me that he was doing that. That's great.
Yeah, I just love him.
So this Bryan came. You're Don. Bryan. So he came in.
Don came in. Yeah.
And you're preaching that night.
I'm preaching, yeah. And so, you look at the faces, you try to read the faces. Are they receiving? I just don't know, So I just did what I did. So Don never talked about Jesus. He never professed Christ or anything like that. Of course, I couldn't get much of a conversation out of him. But then something happened to my eye. I can't remember if this was my right eye. I woke up.
That's weird. Emergency alert. That's weird. Is it tsunami?
I hope not.
Keep rolling the film.
Yeah. So something happened to my eye. I got some kind of a blood thing in the back of my eye, and I was losing vision out of my eye. And I had been at work that day, and I shared that night if anybody would pray for me. I'd gone to the ophthalmologist or optometrist, one of the two, and they took pictures of my eye, and they didn't know what it was, so they wanted to hurry up and get me down to Santa Rosa.
Right.
But I didn't have a way to get there, and that the guy was coming up from Santa Rosa in 2 days. So I was at work, and in the parking lot, I went out to get into my truck, and we had the gate with slats in the gate, and the day use area was right there, and you couldn't see in because of the slats. And as I was walking to my truck, I heard this voice say, "Bryan, I've been praying for your eye." And I thought, who was that? And I walked around and looked around the edge of the fence there, and it was Don. And
Did he see you?
Yeah.
Oh, so he did see you prior to that.
He knew I was getting in my truck.
Gotcha.
And I walked around and I said, "Thank you, Don." And he said, "I'm believing that God will heal you. And I'm praying for you."
Wow.
And I just told him, "Thank you." And I got in my truck. I went home. And the next morning I woke up and getting ready for my day. And about 10, 15 minutes after I got up, I realized nothing's wrong with my eyes.
Wow. Healed.
And I went back to the ophthalmologist, Dr. Gibb, and he had the specialist that came up, and they went in and looked in my eye, and they saw absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And so they had the photos of my eye that they took a couple of days before compared to what my eye was, and they couldn't see anything, nothing.
Wow.
And so just my point being is that oftentimes we see homeless people as just no good vagrants. But on the inside, there's something there. And then Don ended up leaving, and I don't know where he went. I haven't seen or heard from him in years. Yeah. So
I don't know if you knew Jeff Kasnich. He was a pastor at Coastline. He died about 2 years ago. But he had a fella come in church one Sunday. He's pretty rough looking. And Jeff's, if you knew him, he would sit and talk with you and ask good questions. He was a great guy. And he sat with this guy, and he found out his story, and he shared it. He said the guy came home to his wife cheating on him with his best friend, and he went crazy, he went nuts. He lost his mind. He lost his wife, his home, his job, and he'd been on the road for 10 years. And it was just, you're going, what? Okay, that's not the typical story, but that's another one in a collection of human stories that, the story we always tell ourselves is, it's just a bunch of bad choices. He just wants to live in the woods and, in a 5-gallon bucket and shoot up, and it's, just party.
Right.
I don't, we don't fully narrate that, but I think a lot of us prejudge in a way and pre-narrate in a way that we have no business doing. And it's to our detriment because Imago Dei, image of God, these are, child of God. You're right. I often think of that and pray for folks when I drive by. I go, that lady screaming at the top of her lungs with no teeth, who's freaking out, crying and swearing.
It's created in the image of God.
Created, and that was somebody's daughter who was a really awesome 6th grader and played basketball or did something. And then, oh my God, then life happened.
Yeah.
And it's not over for her either. Maybe that's the hope piece that keeps y'all going, to go, hey, come on in. Yeah. Cedar's preaching tonight. You're going to love it. He's great. You're going to dig what he's got. Yeah. It's going to be good. So how about individual stories, right? Without names or HIPAA rules, but people that you've seen that are amazing, overcame odds. Maybe a super sad story. Maybe somebody that was sober 10 years and dove back in.
I got a super sad story.
Okay.
And I've got a really good story.
Let's start sad.
I'll call him Rich. He came to us absolutely, completely just the worst drunk I've ever seen. And he came in and out, in and out, in and out. And finally, there was one day that he actually made a decision to come in the program. And he did well. And he came alive.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I showed you pictures of before, you wouldn't even be able to tell
You saw
that it was the same person.
The real rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so he did well for a long time. And unfortunately went back to drinking and using drugs.
Wow.
And I think it was behind the Bayshore Mall that they found him overdosed.
Rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are sad stories.
It's heart-rending.
Yeah.
Especially when you have an investment, you know this person. And it just happened to us. I have a good friend that graduated Teen Challenge, and I was going to go down and work at the headquarters in LA, and 6 weeks later, he's dead in Motel 6 in Arcata. And one of us got to go get his car and his stuff, and it was pretty important for my 21-year-old and I. I said, Aaron, do you know what we're doing right here, and do you know why? And I explained to him that Jeffrey just couldn't make it. We tried to come get him, and the Marines come back for their men and women, and sometimes they're not there.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it for whatever reasons, but that still sits really, really weird.
Yeah.
And let's hear. Now we're in the sad part. Let's hear the good story.
There was a probably 6'4", 6'5", over 300 pound, a Hispanic male that came to the rescue mission, deeply involved with gangs.
Huh.
He came to us.
Did he give him a fake name?
I don't know. Let's call him Jose. Right.
Jose works.
Yeah.
And his real name?
Yeah. And he came to us still with that penitentiary gang mentality.
Sure.
The Lord got a hold of him. And it was a 9-day difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then he graduated and he went to work for a local flooring company. Mm-hmm. And then he had some ups and downs and had struggled, but he got back on his feet and then started his own flooring business.
How about that?
Yeah. And so has done pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
He still had some up and downs, but now he's doing really well now. It sounds like he's going to be retiring from his flooring company and it paid for his house and everything. So he's married and he's got his kids with him that he didn't have before. And
how about that?
Yeah.
But wound up in Eureka. Probably not from Eureka.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Southern California, I think.
Yeah. Remember talking to a graduate from Teen Challenge. I don't mean to keep juxtaposing, but
that's good.
It's the same. We're playing on the same team, like you said. And he was going back to med school. One morning, it was his last day in the program. And we used to gather down at where Kelno Cellular was, where their old headquarters. Anyway, so we would go down there and good looking guy, man. He's just a good looking young guy. And I'm going back to grad school at UCLA and going to be a doctor. And he goes, 2 years ago, let me just tell you what meth does to you. And he had this whole story of, it destroyed my body. He goes, it was the worst thing that I've ever could imagine. And he, another success story. Got to walk through it. I have no idea if he's a doc or where he's at, but he's on the path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other stories come to mind?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Really good one.
Yeah.
Chris. I'll say his name because I'm going to tell you who he is. He came to us, great big guy, big booming voice, big personality, but he was a wreck when he came to us and had contemplated suicide and all kinds of things going on in life. So he came in the program. He did a year in the program and then basically begged us if he could do another year because he just wasn't ready yet.
Wow.
And so we granted him another year. And in that time, he got involved with systematic theology. And when it was taking classes for that. And so it wasn't too long after that he was attending a church in Redway. And then he is now senior pastor at Redway Baptist Church.
How about that?
Amazing.
Down in Soham. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
It occurs to me there's probably a whole cadre of itinerant, great local lay pastors that come in and do the chapel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or now, are you guys all generally plugged into Calvary Chapel, Eureka?
We do Calvary Chapel. I think some of them go to Cutton Community Church. Some go to First Covenant Church. Some go to Faith Center. So it's just
spread around.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always remember Dan would always bring some of the guys to men's breakfast or a men's retreat up at Dr. Holmes up South Fork. And always great. Hey, come on down, man. It's all level down there at the cross.
It is.
It is. It's good. Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
Any other stories come to mind?
Let's see. My story is played out in so many other individuals. It's just the resurrection power of Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
It's not religion. It's relationship with the Lord. Religious people put Jesus on the cross. They joined together with their enemies, which was the Roman government, to do it.
Yeah.
And so he hung out with the worst of the worst.
Talking about that today.
Yeah. He wasn't welcomed up in the higher echelons of the religious leaders. As a matter of fact, they hated him because he showed them up.
Yeah.
He was healing blind people.
Yeah.
Raised dead people, causing the lame to walk, and that was showing them up. They should have been doing that. Yeah. They should have been reaching the people, but they weren't. They were too busy about their outward appearance, maintaining that popularity.
And I think we both know better than to rip God's bride, the church. But the church has failed. Some churches have failed because they don't. They're like the unseen, or how many churches have a bunch of prostitutes come in, or tax collectors, or our version of that.
Yeah.
Publicans and unbelievers. What are you doing? Well, what are those guys doing here?
Yeah.
And which would be the greatest answer. They're here because they're looking.
Yeah.
For that wake up call. That moment with God.
Yeah.
And which I think is, the whole idea, but that's, I don't run a church, so I don't have a whole lot to say so, but to your point, I think that's great. So real quick, tell me about your vision for Humboldt in terms of where we're at, maybe in your world, and where you see things going, where you'd like to see it go generally within your perspective, your mindset.
Where I would like to see things go is no more homeless people. Everybody gets radically saved.
Okay.
And preaches the gospel everywhere they go.
Wow.
That's a perfect world.
That's a big vision.
It is a perfect world, but is it going to get there? Well, maybe not, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to strive for that. I'm going to keep preaching the gospel,
I like
loving on the people, treating them human, bending over backwards for them.
That's what the county's known for.
Yeah.
In many ways, in and out of church. It seems like that it's that camaraderie, that connection, that community idea. Yeah. Not 100%, but we get pretty good marks on that one. Larry O. Doss called it. He called we have grit.
Yeah,
I think there's also grit, which means people grind and till they don't.
Yeah. It's the difficult part, and I understand because I weigh the business community with the homeless community because we're so tied in with Old Town and working together with the businesses. And so the guys that were homeless come into our program, get their lives together. We then go back out into the community and make a difference.
Sure.
And the difference that we're making is we're cleaning up homeless camps.
Yeah.
Within town. And we work together with the CSET team and Eureka Police.
John Shelter and those guys?
I think John's working Southern. I'm not sure.
He's down elsewhere. Okay.
I think that's where he's at.
He does the same kind of idea.
Yeah.
And then Aaron Ostrom with Green Pack Out.
Yeah. Phenomenal. We're primarily right there in Old Town. Yeah. And sometimes we'll go to different places like that and work together, but down by the docks, sensitive areas, and we work together with this. You can't just go in and make somebody leave. Right. And that's law enforcement and how they want to deal with that and tag the camps and stuff like that, But we'll go in and we'll load all the stuff up and work together with the city as good as we can. So, that's the difficult part is there are so many people that are so addicted and so mentally ill. I understand somebody wanting to pitch a tent for the night. You go in there, you go to sleep. And you get up in the morning, you roll your stuff up, put it in your backpack, and on you go. But that's not the case. And so it's just, you look around, you drive through town, you see it. That people are just really, really, really severely addicted or just mentally sick that they just can't function.
And I think it's where the non-homeless tolerance goes in the toilet.
Yeah.
Because here's mounds of trash.
Yeah.
And feces and needles, and it's just it's out of control. And you go, wait, we don't live. This isn't society. But to your point, it can be.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to stay on top of it. There's, I don't know politics and all of that stuff for the laws, and I just look at it. It's a huge problem, and I can't fix it. But what I can do is pour my life into other people. And give them the hope that I have, and that's the hope of Jesus.
Nice.
And, the rescue mission is, our newsletter's called Changing Lives, and that's our motto, is changing lives one life at a time.
I was reading it this week.
Yeah, and that's why I tell people is there's a difference between speaking to somebody and speaking into somebody. And that's by the power of the Holy Spirit. You can speak the word of God to somebody, but when the Holy Spirit gets a hold of the word, it goes into them. And when God's word goes into them, there's something's going to happen, and it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It just may not be right now.
Yeah.
And so we never give up hope and never give up.
That's what I'm hearing from you. And I think it's really important. And I believe this, the Holy Spirit works on people from day and year one, all the way through, whether it's through Billy Graham on a TV show or a great sunset.
Yeah.
And God's always speaking. It's just, are we listening?
Yeah.
And maybe more important, are we responding?
Yeah.
I really like that. I'll ask you this. I've never asked this to anybody in the show, and you're number 30, so congratulations. There seems to be, after 43 years here and hanging out with Christians and talking to different people from different faiths and different backgrounds, and some are dead and some are still living, but there is a sense of a destiny for Humboldt County. You kind of spoke it, hey, I'd like to see it, radical revival. You didn't use the word, but I'll use it. And that there's something really special about this county on a spiritual basis and a God thing and a Holy Spirit thing. What do you think? Do you think that's in the cards? Or is that real? Is that just some guys that were prophetically feeling good one night?
I think that there's truth to that. However, for that to be true, there must be a huge impending darkness, a darkness that you can feel. And that's when the light of Christ shines so bright, is when there is a lot of darkness. And like I say, I've lived here, I'm 58 years old. I've lived here in Humboldt County my whole life. And I've seen things get worse and worse and worse. And I've sensed it in my spirit, a lot of witchcraft. There's a lot of, I believe, a lot of Satanism that goes on. It's just not in front. It has a different form now. It's not some devil with horns and stuff running around. It's more natural. It's more earthly. It's more sensual.
Yeah. Yeah. Pastor Jim up Arcata Calvary Chapel. I'll show you where that is. It's right up here in Arcata. You already know.
Yeah, up by the high school.
That's part of my shtick. And Eureka's right here, Southern Humboldt. So he said this should be Shangri-La. It should be marijuana, fun, better weather, fun, and beaches, rivers, fishing, hunting. And instead, it's a darker version in many ways. We hold statistics in drug abuse, alcoholism, child abuse, human trafficking. I mean, we have some. You probably are in touch with that more than I would be, but that there is craziness and violent crimes and fentanyl, and here comes the list.
Yeah.
So it isn't Disneyland,
It's not, no.
but and that's kind of to the darkness point that, hey, it's Humboldt. Come to Humboldt. It's where Leo DiCaprio was filming a movie, and you can go up to the redwoods. And I know you're from Europe. You've never seen the woods, and it'd be great to see the beach. And that's all true. However, that dark underbelly, and we don't. Even now, I'm uncomfortable addressing it, but it's
Yeah, but
it's real, and you would see it as real on a daily basis. I would say.
Yeah, but
the toll of that.
Scott, you really got to, when you look at that though, and I agree with you, but you really have to look that's everywhere. That's everywhere. There's a dark underbelly everywhere.
Good point.
Okay.
It's not just Humboldt.
Right. And it's easy for me to get on my phone and look through all the news feeds and go, oh man.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I'm always focusing on that.
Good point.
And so for me, I get up in the morning and I spend my time in the Word of God.
Nice.
I constantly listening to teaching on my way to Eureka in the mornings. I'm listening to some kind of teaching. My favorite teacher is Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. Love him. It's too bad he didn't have a message every single day, you know.
You'd listen to it.
Yeah, I would. I just love him. And there's others too that I listen to. But if all I ever do is focus on the negative, I'll become negative.
Correct.
Okay. And I know there's a lot of negative to focus on.
Oh, boy.
But, you know, if we rise above that preacher Ed Cole said one time, he said he was outside and it was raining and he was praising God, threw his hands in the air. Praise God. Thank you, God, for the sunshine. You know, and people think you're a nut. He said, above the clouds, the sun is always shining. And above every circumstance, there's a Savior. And when we have our eyes focused and fixed on Jesus, it's a dark world we live in. But you know what? Light will always overcome the darkness. And we are to be children of light. And we're to speak love, kindness, gentleness, into situations. It's not like I'm a word of faith guy. I'm just saying that's who we need to be.
That's who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who we are.
And if we fail to identify ourselves with the person of Jesus Christ, then we'll succumb to just whatever is coming down the pike.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And
whatever's on Fox News or CNN tonight or Channel 6 News or whatever it is, you're right. And we boycotted news about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm so much better for it. I mean, joy levels are just like, you know,
I bet. Yeah.
I just don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, it's fed as a discouragement. It's just, here it comes.
Yeah.
So,
I killed my TV. I still have it.
Yeah.
We watch YouTube videos and stuff. So I no longer have the news, but I do have news feeds.
Well,
I don't want to be stupid.
Right. If something dumb happens or hard in the world today, somehow we get word about it, even though we're not plugged into it. Yeah. It's funny how that if you really had to know about it, you'd know about it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So great point. Well, hey, what a delight. So the contest, here's my bell. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here's for all the prizes. What do you do on your day off in Humboldt? What's your favorite things to do?
Stay home.
Staycation.
Yeah. Stay home with my wife. Yeah.
What would you do? Just projects, spend time?
Yeah, sit by the fire.
Nice.
And watch YouTube videos and just hang out with my wife. Yeah,
that's a good one, man. Oh.
Yeah, and mow the lawn.
Yeah, well, big wife points on all of those. Yeah, that's good. I love it.
She's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
Where do you drink coffee in Eureka? Question number 2.
I don't usually go out to coffee. I bring my own from home.
If you could, where would you have a coffee?
Oh, I don't know. I like Chitterbean and Rick at Chitterbean. He's a good dude.
Great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great product.
Yeah, super good.
Yeah, I know.
Starbucks. I've had a few coffees from Starbucks, but I like the local people. Yeah. Somebody who's built something here. You know, I like those.
Funny how that shifted. So if you were to go for a hike, where do you hike?
If I was going to go for a hike, I like the Fortuna Roner Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice back up there, the woods.
Yeah. And then you can also go back behind Carson Woods Road, back behind the park. I haven't been there for years, but you can go way back in the woods back there.
Somebody said behind CR you can go all the way over to Elk River too. There's a series of trails up there.
Hydesville. I grew up in Hydesville, and
beautiful out there.
I've ridden my motorcycle on the PG&E, I think it is the gas pipeline, all the way to Bridgeville.
Oh, wow.
I had an XR75. And
but that was fun.
Oh, it was a blast.
See a bunch of stuff back there.
Oh, yeah. Carry a can of gas on the back. Me and my buddy Johnny, we would just ride. Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Scott.
Appreciate you. 100% Humboldt, and we'll talk again. Thank you.
All right.